Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now. Just because something didn't go the way you planned doesn't mean it's over for you. Just because you made mistakes or missed opportunities or spent too long going in the wrong direction doesn't mean you're stuck there forever. The world will try to put an expiration date on your potential, but God didn't. You may feel like it's too late, but God says now is the time. We've all had moments where we looked back and thought, if only I had known then what I know now. But let me ask you something. What's stopping you from taking what you know now and using it to move forward? Who told you that your story is over? It's not over unless you decide it is. The truth is, every single day is an opportunity to begin, and you don't have to wait for a perfect moment. You don't need a clean slate. You just need a willing heart. God specializes in fresh starts. He's the God of new beginnings, not just once, but over and over again. If you've still got breath in your lungs, then you've still got purpose in your life. And if you've still got purpose, then you can still move forward. He doesn't look at you and see failure. He sees potential. He sees what he put inside of you when he formed you. He sees every setback and already has a comeback ready. But here's the thing, you have to believe it. You have to stop sitting in the ashes of what didn't work and start reaching for what could be. Some of you are stuck in guilt thinking, I should have done this differently, or I wasted too much time. But let me remind you, God is not bound by time the way we are. He's not wringing his hands because you didn't get it right the first time. He's not sitting on the sidelines waiting for you to impress him. He's standing beside you saying, let's try again. This time with me. When you begin again with him, it's not starting from scratch, it's starting from experience. You've got wisdom now. You've got lessons now. You've got scars, maybe, but those scars can speak. They can become testimonies. Think about the people God used in the Bible. Moses killed a man, ran away. God still used him. Peter denied Jesus 3 times, and Jesus still called him to lead. Paul persecuted the church, and God still transformed him into one of the greatest messengers of the gospel. Do you really think your past is too much for God? If he could turn their lives around, he can absolutely do it for you. The enemy wants you to believe that it's too late, that you're too far gone, that there's too much damage. But that's a lie straight from the pit. Your age doesn't disqualify you. Your background doesn't disqualify you. The time you've lost doesn't disqualify you. God is in the business of redeeming time. What you thought was wasted, he can still use. What you thought was a dead end, he can turn into a brand new road. It's not about how many times you've fallen. It's about how many times you're willing to get back up. Starting over isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It takes courage to admit I was wrong. It takes boldness to say, I want more. And it takes faith to look at a broken path and still believe there's a future worth walking into. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait until everything looks perfect. Start messy. Start scared. Start tired. Just start. And do it knowing that you're not starting alone. You've got help. You've got grace. You've got divine backing. You may not know what's next, but you know who holds your next step. And that is enough to move forward with confidence. You don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. You just have to take it in faith. You cannot begin again with purpose if your hands are still full of guilt and regret. Some of you are trying to step into a new season while dragging the weight of the old one behind you. You're trying to move forward, but every step is heavy, not because you aren't strong enough, but because you're still carrying things you were never meant to carry. Guilt, shame. I should have done this. I wish I hadn't done that. Regret plays like a loop in your head, and it's exhausting. But I want to tell you right now, you can't change the past. You can only choose how you let it shape you. Guilt is one of the enemy's favorite weapons. And if he can't stop you from dreaming, he'll try to bury your dreams under the weight of guilt. He'll whisper things like, you're not worthy, you messed up too bad, or you don't deserve another chance. But none of that is true. Guilt may feel like the truth, but it's a counterfeit. It mimics conviction, but it leads to bondage, not freedom. There's a big difference between conviction from God and guilt from the enemy. Conviction says, you can do better, let me help you. Guilt says, you'll never be better, so why even try? One leads to growth. The other leads to stagnation. You've got to make a choice. Will you continue replaying old scenes that you can't rewrite, or will you turn the page and let God write something new? Regret loves to remind you of everything that went wrong. It highlights every wrong word, every missed opportunity, every door you should have walked through but didn't. But here's the truth. If it needed to happen, God would have made sure it happened. And if you missed it, He's more than capable of redirecting you. Nothing is too broken for Him to fix. He's not surprised by your detours. Some people get addicted to regret. They wear it like a badge, almost as if punishing themselves for what went wrong will somehow make it right. But beating yourself up doesn't redeem the past. It only steals your present. You don't have to keep punishing yourself for something God already forgave. He's not asking you to sit in shame. He's asking you to stand in grace. You can't begin again with a bowed head and a broken spirit. You begin again by lifting your head, not because you're perfect, but because He is. There's a story in Luke 15 about the prodigal son. He messed up bad. He took everything his father gave him, ran off, and wasted it. When he finally came to his senses, he didn't even expect to be welcomed back. He just hoped to be tolerated. But what did his father do? He ran to meet him. He threw his arms around him. He didn't make him beg. He didn't lecture him. He celebrated his return. That's the kind of God we serve. He's not standing at the door with a list of your sins. He's running toward you with open arms. Some of you are afraid to let go of regret because you think it makes you humble. But real humility isn't about dragging your past around like a weight. It's about acknowledging your weakness and trusting God's strength. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you trust God more than you trust your memory of what went wrong. It means you believe His grace is bigger than your failure, that He can redeem what was lost, that He can bring beauty out of ashes, and He will if you let Him. Stop waiting for guilt to go away on its own. It won't. You've got to confront it. Speak truth to it. Declare, I am not who I was. I am not what I did. I am who God says I am. You are not defined by your worst moment. You are not the sum total of your regrets. You are a child of God, covered by grace, washed clean, made new. So if God says you're free, why are you still living chained? You've got to make peace with your past if you want to walk fully into your future. That doesn't mean you forget everything. It means you stop letting it control you. Your past is a chapter. It's not the whole book. You can learn from it, grow from it, but you do not have to be ruled by it. You've cried enough tears over it. You've replayed it long enough. It's time to put the guilt down. Put the regret down. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now, because freedom doesn't come when you feel like you deserve it. Freedom comes when you finally accept that you never did, but He gave it anyway. One of the biggest lies people believe is this: God can't use me because I'm too messed up, too broken, too far gone, too flawed. But let me tell you something, God has always used broken things. In fact, He specializes in it. That's His favorite place to work, because when something is broken, there's space for Him to step in and rebuild it in a way no one else can. This world will tell you that broken means useless, that if something isn't shiny, polished, or put together, it's not valuable. But God doesn't see things the way people do. Where others see weakness, He sees potential. Where others see damage, He sees destiny. He doesn't need perfect people. He needs willing people. People who are humble enough to say, I don't have it all together, but I trust that you do. Look through Scripture and you'll see it over and over again. God never called the flawless. He called the available. Think about Rahab. She had a past most would be ashamed to even mention. She was broken in the eyes of society, labeled and dismissed. But God used her to hide the spies and protect the plan. Her story became part of the lineage of Jesus, broken but chosen. Then there's David, a man after God's own heart, but also a man who committed adultery and murder. Do you think God didn't know what David would do? Of course He did. And still He used him, not because David was perfect, but because David was repentant. Because David came back and said, create in me a clean heart, O God. That's what God looks for, not perfection, but a heart that's willing to be made new. And what about Peter? He was impulsive, emotional, and denied Jesus 3 times when it mattered most. But God didn't throw him away. He restored him. He looked at Peter, broken and ashamed, and still said, feed my sheep. Because God sees beyond the moment. He sees the calling behind the collapse. He sees the ministry behind the mess. Sometimes we think our brokenness disqualifies us, but really it's what makes us relatable. Do you know how many people are walking around feeling unworthy, like they're too broken to be loved, too damaged to be useful? When you've been through something and you let God heal you, you become a walking testimony. You become the proof that healing is real, that grace is powerful, that restoration is possible. People don't need to see perfection, they need to see transformation. They need to see someone who fell, but didn't stay down. There's something sacred about brokenness when it's placed in the hands of God. It's not the kind of brokenness that leads to despair, it's the kind that opens you up. Break open a seed, and you get nothing. Plant it, let it break in the ground, and that same seed grows into something alive. That's how God works. He plants you in the dark, in places where you feel buried, not realizing you're about to grow. And sometimes the breaking is the beginning of the becoming. Some of the most beautiful things in life are born out of broken places. Your compassion, it probably came from your own pain. Your strength, it probably came from surviving something you didn't think you could. Your wisdom, it came from lessons you never asked for but needed. So why are you ashamed of the very places God has used to shape you? We love to hide our cracks, cover up our struggles, pretend we've never been broken. But it's often in the revealing that others find healing. You don't have to show off a perfect life. Show the one that's been pieced back together by grace. Because when people see that you've been through it and you're still here, they'll stop believing the lie that broken means done. God does some of his best work in the places you thought were beyond repair. He's not afraid of your mess. He's not intimidated by your mistakes. He already knows, and he still chooses you. Not just to survive it, but to rise from it and lead others out too. When you give your broken pieces to God, he doesn't just glue them back together like nothing happened. No, he builds something new, something better, something stronger, something that carries glory. Something that couldn't have existed without the breaking. We all want purpose. We all want to know why we're here, what we're meant to do, what the bigger picture is for our lives. But here's the part most people skip over. Purpose doesn't begin with a plan, it begins with surrender. Not hustle, not striving, not a checklist of goals, surrender. And for a lot of people, that's the hard part. You can't step fully into your purpose if you're still trying to control every step. God isn't looking for people who have it all mapped out. He's looking for people who will lay down their own ideas, their own timelines, their own expectations and say, not my will, but yours. That's where it begins. Not in knowing everything, but in trusting the one who does. We live in a world that celebrates independence. Figure it out. Take charge of your life. Be your own boss. But the kingdom of God operates differently. You don't discover your purpose by pushing your weight away to the top. You discover it by bowing low and saying, lead me. That's where clarity comes. That's where real direction shows up. Not in chaos, but in surrender. Surrender doesn't mean you stop trying. It means you stop forcing. It means you stop holding everything so tightly. It means you finally acknowledge that your strength alone won't be enough. And that's okay, because where you stop, he starts. God can do more with your I don't know, but I trust you than he can with your perfectly written 5-year plan. Think about Mary, the mother of Jesus. When the angel came to her and told her she'd carry the Son of God, she didn't say, let me think about it. She didn't say, can you give me the whole picture? No, she said, let it be unto me according to your word. That's surrender. That's purpose in motion. She didn't need all the details to obey. She just needed faith. A surrendered life doesn't always look impressive to people. It's not flashy. It's not always loud. But it's powerful. Because it's in that space that God moves freely. When you stop trying to micromanage every outcome, you make room for the supernatural. You make room for miracles. You make room for divine timing, divine connections, divine assignments. And yes, surrender will challenge your pride. It will confront your fear. It will test your patience. Because we're used to being in control. We're used to doing things our way. But God isn't interested in partnering with your pride. He's looking to shape your heart. And nothing humbles you like surrender. Nothing grows you like obedience. Purpose isn't something you manufacture. It's something you receive. You don't earn it. You align with it. And the only way to align is to yield. Yield your ambitions, yield your timelines, yield your fears, yield your comfort zones. Yield everything you thought it had to be, and watch what he can do with what you gave up. Some of you are stuck not because God hasn't spoken, but because you haven't surrendered. You're asking for the next step while clinging to the last one. You want the new thing while refusing to let go of the old. That's not how it works. You can't carry old baggage into a new season. Purpose won't fit in a life that's already full of your own plans. There's a reason Jesus said, whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. That's not just a nice quote, it's a principle. When you surrender what you think life should be, you open yourself to what it was always meant to be. And often that's better than anything you could have asked for or imagined. Surrender sounds scary until you realize who you're surrendering to. You're not handing your life over to someone who wants to limit you. You're giving it to the one who created you. The one who sees the end from the beginning. The one who knows what you were made for, because he made you. There's no safer place than in his will. No more powerful place than in his purpose. But to get there, you've got to let go of needing to know everything. You've got to let go of needing to be right, needing to be safe, needing to be in charge. You've got to be willing to open your hands and say, whatever you want, Lord, that's what I want too. You cannot move forward if your heart is chained to bitterness. You cannot begin again if your soul is still locked in resentment. I know forgiveness isn't easy. I know it feels unfair. I know sometimes it feels like letting someone off the hook. But hear me when I say this forgiveness is not about them. It's about you. It's about your freedom. It's about your healing, because as long as you're holding on to the pain, the offense, the betrayal, you're still giving that situation power over your life. Unforgiveness doesn't just live quietly in the background. It infects everything. It clouds your vision. It hardens your heart. And it builds walls around your soul. And those walls might feel like protection at first, but really they're a prison. You start living guarded, suspicious, closed off. You stop trusting. You stop hoping. You stop dreaming. And eventually you stop moving. Not because you're weak, but because you're carrying something your heart wasn't built to hold for that long. When Jesus taught about forgiveness, he didn't do it as a suggestion. He made it clear, if you don't forgive others, how can you expect to be forgiven? That's not him being harsh. That's him being honest, because forgiveness is a flow. You receive it, and then you release it. It's not meant to stop with you. You're not just forgiven to be free, you're forgiven so you can set others free too. Now let me say this plainly, forgiving someone doesn't mean what they did was okay. It doesn't mean you trust them again. It doesn't mean you let them back into your life. Forgiveness isn't about restoring a relationship, it's about restoring your peace. You can forgive someone from a distance. You can forgive them and still keep boundaries. But you've got to do it. Not for their sake, but for yours. Because you cannot walk into your future dragging the pain of your past. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. We replay the same mistakes, the same regrets, over and over again in our minds. How could I have been so blind? Why did I let that happen? I should have known better. But here's the thing, God already knew you were going to mess up. He already knew you were going to take the wrong turn, trust the wrong person, say the wrong thing. And yet, he still chose you, still called you, still loves you. So why are you holding something against yourself that God already wiped clean? The cross wasn't just about getting you to heaven, it was about setting you free now. Free from sin, yes, but also free from shame. Free from the voice in your head that says you're not enough. Free from the heavy weight of everything you wish you could go back and change. You can't change it, but you can forgive it. You can release it. You can look in the mirror and say, I'm not that person anymore. I've been made new. And I forgive myself. Forgiveness takes courage. It takes maturity. It takes a decision to stop letting the past steal from your present. And let me be clear, it's not a one-time thing. Sometimes you'll have to forgive in layers. Sometimes you'll think you're over it. And something will trigger the pain all over again. That's okay. That doesn't mean you failed. That just means healing is still happening. Just don't stop. Keep choosing forgiveness. Keep choosing freedom. Because the truth is, unforgiveness keeps you tied to what hurt you. It keeps you connected to the offense. And as long as you're tied to it, you're giving it space in your life it doesn't deserve. You're letting it sit in your thoughts, poison your joy, and block your blessings. But the moment you say, I release this, I choose to forgive, something shifts. You start to feel lighter, clearer, stronger. You stop being a victim of what happened, and you start becoming a vessel for healing. You were never meant to carry offense like a badge of honor. You were never meant to rehearse the pain like a script. That bitterness may feel justified, but it's not worth your peace, not worth your purpose, not worth your future. There are things God wants to do in you and through you, but you've got to make room. And forgiveness is how you make room. Room for healing, room for restoration, room for joy, room for the new thing God wants to do in your life. If there's one lie the enemy loves to whisper into your heart, it's this: it's too late for you. He'll say you've messed up too many times, made too many bad choices, missed too many chances. He'll convince you that everyone else might still have a shot, but you're too far gone. You've gone too deep, stayed too long, drifted too far. But let me tell you the truth loud and clear. God doesn't give up on people. Ever, you are never too far gone for a fresh start. It doesn't matter how dark the season has been. It doesn't matter how long you've been stuck. It doesn't matter how many times you've said, this time I'll get it right, and then fell right back into the same pattern. God's grace doesn't run out. It doesn't weaken over time. It doesn't dry up when you've failed for the 5th or 50th time. The blood of Jesus didn't just cover the light sins, it covers all of it. The secret stuff. The shameful stuff. The stuff nobody else even knows about. And let's be honest, sometimes it's not even about the sin. Sometimes it's the weariness, the numbness, the hopelessness. Life just beats you down and you're not sure how to come back from it. You don't even recognize yourself anymore. But I want you to know God doesn't need you to be polished up before he restores you. He just needs you to turn toward him. He's not asking for perfection, he's asking for surrender. The story of the Bible is full of people who had every reason to believe their story was over, and yet God gave them a fresh start. Moses killed a man and ran off into the desert. 40 years went by before God called him to lead a nation out of slavery. Jonah ran from God, got swallowed by a fish, and still ended up preaching revival. Paul persecuted Christians, dragged believers out of their homes, and then became one of the greatest apostles who ever lived. Over and over, God rewrites stories that look finished. So if you've convinced yourself it's too late, that the damage is too deep, that your mistakes have somehow put you outside the reach of grace, you're believing a lie. Because God doesn't need your past to be perfect in order to use your future. He's not limited by time, by age, by circumstances, or by reputation. The moment you say, God, I need you, the process begins. The comeback starts. And no, it doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's slow, quiet, gentle, but it's real. Sometimes we disqualify ourselves because we think we've wasted too much time. We look at the years we spent running in the wrong direction and feel like it's all gone to waste. But let me tell you something, nothing is wasted in God's hands. He knows how to redeem time. He knows how to restore what was lost. He knows how to use every broken moment for your growth. What the enemy meant for evil, God can and will turn for good if you let him. And I know what some of you are thinking, but I don't feel worthy. Well, guess what? None of us are. That's why it's called grace. You don't have to earn this fresh start. You just have to receive it. Accept it. Step into it. You may not feel new right away, but your spirit knows. Heaven knows. God knows. And he's not basing your future on what you did. He's basing it on who he is. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not your divorce, your addiction, your abortion, your failures, or your mess. You are not the sum of what happened to you or what you did in your darkest hour. You are a child of God. And as long as there is breath in your lungs, there is hope. There is opportunity. There is purpose. You're not too broken, too dirty, too late, or too far. God doesn't write people off. He writes them back in. You don't have to understand how he's going to do it. You just have to believe that he can, that he wants to, that he already made a way for you to begin again, not in shame, but in purpose, not in fear, but in faith. All of heaven isn't looking at where you've been, it's looking at where you're going. And God himself is standing with open arms, not saying, where have you been, but saying, let's go forward from here. One of the most overlooked, underestimated principles in the life of a believer is this: obedience. We talk about faith, we talk about grace, we talk about love, and all of that is powerful and necessary. But sometimes what's keeping us from stepping into the next level, the next opportunity, the next open door is not a lack of faith. It's a lack of obedience. You can believe all day long, but if you're not doing what God asked you to do, you'll stay stuck. Obedience isn't always flashy. It doesn't always feel spiritual. Sometimes it looks like making the phone call you don't want to make. Sometimes it's forgiving someone who doesn't deserve it. Sometimes it's walking away from something that feels comfortable but isn't healthy. It can be inconvenient. It can be uncomfortable. And it can definitely be costly. But there is always a reward on the other side of obedience. God doesn't show us the whole staircase. He gives us one step at a time. And too many people are sitting around saying, God, show me the full picture. Tell me the whole plan. Then I'll move. But that's not how it works. God says, take the step. And then I'll show you what's next. He's not looking for people who want to control the process. He's looking for people who trust his leadership. He's looking for people who say, even if I don't understand it, I'll do it because you said so. Look at Abraham. God told him to leave his country, his people, everything familiar, and go to land he would show him. Abraham didn't get GPS coordinates. He didn't get a map. He got a promise. And he obeyed. And because he obeyed, he became the father of nations. But that legacy didn't start with a prophecy. It started with a step. The next step in your purpose is usually waiting on the other side of your obedience. And obedience isn't just about the big, dramatic decisions. Sometimes it's in the small, consistent yes. Get up and pray when you don't feel like it. Show up to serve when nobody notices. Stay in the assignment even when it's hard. Keep your heart clean when it would be easier to get bitter. Every yes matters. Every act of obedience is like planting a seed. You may not see the harvest right away, but God sees. He always sees. Some of you are waiting for breakthrough, waiting for favor, waiting for doors to open, and the key is sitting in the instruction God already gave you. What did he ask you to do last? Go back to that. Obedience doesn't expire. If he told you to do it 3 years ago and you still haven't done it, don't expect a new word until you follow through on the last one. God isn't looking to entertain us, he's looking to lead us. And leadership requires follow through. It's easy to be obedient when it makes sense. It's easy to say yes when it looks like progress. But what about when the step feels like a setback? What about when obedience doesn't come with applause, when it actually costs you something: friends, comfort, reputation, income, convenience? That's where real trust is proven. That's where faith grows. And that's where God does his best work. Sometimes God tests us with small things to see if he can trust us with big things. If you won't be faithful with what's in your hand, why would he give you what's in his? Obedience is not just about proving something to God, it's about preparing something in you. It builds spiritual discipline. It teaches you to hear his voice and respond, not just react. It creates a history between you and God, a rhythm, a track record. And that's what carries you through when life gets uncertain. Obedience is also what protects you. Some of us pray for protection and then walk straight into what God told us to stay away from. We blame the enemy for storms we created by ignoring divine instructions. But when you obey, even when it's hard, you position yourself under God's covering. You may not avoid every challenge, but you'll have the peace of knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what he told you to do. We've made obedience sound like a restriction, but really it's a doorway. Every time you obey, you're saying yes to growth, yes to maturity, yes to being shaped, molded, and prepared. You're saying yes to God's best, even when it doesn't look like your idea of success. And that kind of obedience, that's what leads to transformation. That's what unlocks favor. That's what positions you for the next level. Not when it's easy, not when it's popular, not when it makes sense, but when it's right. When it's what he said. When your spirit says yes, even when your flesh says wait. When you obey because you trust him more than you trust yourself. We've been taught to chase perfection, to get everything right, to look right, talk right, perform right. We think if we can just do it all flawlessly, then maybe we'll be accepted. Then maybe we'll feel worthy. But let me tell you something that will set you free. God isn't looking for perfect people. He's looking for consistent ones. Because consistency, not perfection, is what leads to transformation. We waste so much energy trying to avoid mistakes, trying to hide our flaws, trying to control every little outcome. But that's not strength, that's fear in disguise. Perfection is exhausting, and it's a trap. Because no matter how hard you try, something will still fall short. You'll miss a deadline. You'll lose your temper, you'll forget a promise, you'll fail someone, and if you're measuring your worth by perfection, you'll always come up empty. But consistency, that's where the power is. Consistency says, even when I fall, I'll get back up. Consistency says, even if I missed it yesterday, I'm showing up today. You don't have to be extraordinary to be consistent. You just have to be committed, obedient, present. The enemy isn't always trying to stop you with some bag attack sometimes. He just wants to wear you down so you quit showing up. Because he knows your consistency is dangerous. God works in patterns. He works in rhythms. Think about creation. He didn't do it all in one day. He could have, but he didn't. Why? Because he was showing us something. That real progress is built step by step, day by day, layer by layer. That there's value in process. That things grow gradually. That even God, in his infinite power, chose to model consistency instead of instant results. But here we are, expecting everything to change overnight. We want spiritual growth, emotional healing, financial breakthrough, relationship restoration, all by the end of the week. And when it doesn't happen fast, we get discouraged. But faith doesn't operate on your timeline. It operates on obedience and consistency. What are you doing when nobody's watching? What are you sowing behind the scenes? That's where the fruit comes from. When you pray and nothing seems to shift, keep praying. When you read the word and don't feel goosebumps, keep reading. When you serve and no one notices, keep serving. Because what you do consistently builds momentum in the spirit, even if you can't see it yet. That habit you're forming, that discipline you're building, that quiet yes to God over and over again is doing more than you realize. Some of the most powerful people in the kingdom aren't the loudest, most talented or most visible. They're the ones who stayed faithful, who kept showing up, Who didn't give up when it got boring or hard? Because real purpose isn't built in the spotlight, it's built in the small, unseen places where character is formed. It's in those moments of choice. Will you stay committed when no one is clapping for you? Will you keep going when the results aren't immediate? Consistency doesn't mean perfection, it means progression. And sometimes progress looks slow. It looks ordinary. It looks like just making it through the day without quitting. But over time, those little steps stack up. That seed you watered every morning starts to break the ground. That prayer you whispered through tears starts to shift something inside you. That word you kept reading becomes a foundation under your feet. And that's what God honors. The pressure to be perfect will keep you stuck. But when you embrace consistency, you start to see real growth. You stop living in cycles of burnout and begin to live in rhythm with grace. You stop performing and start abiding. Because God isn't asking you to get it all right. He's asking you to stay with Him. Keep walking, keep trusting, keep doing the small things faithfully. They matter more than you think. We've got this idea that greatness is about one big moment, one big breakthrough, one defining decision. But most of the time it's not. Most of the time, greatness is about what you do daily. Do you keep showing up when it's not glamorous? Do you keep believing even when it feels slow? Do you keep choosing growth even when it costs you your comfort? That's what builds a strong life. Not the perfection of your performance, but the persistence of your pursuit. We live in a world that thrives on speed, faster internet, faster delivery, instant results. We're conditioned to expect things now. And when we have to wait, we start to question ourselves, our decisions, and even God. But here's what we have to understand. God doesn't work on our schedule. He's not in a rush. He's not late. He's never scrambling to make things happen. His timing is perfect. Not early, not delayed, always on time even when it doesn't feel like it. Waiting on God is one of the hardest things to do because it confronts our desire for control. It tests our trust. It stretches our faith, especially when it seems like everyone else is moving forward and we're stuck. You pray, you believe, you obey, but nothing seems to be changing. And in those moments, the enemy will whisper, did God forget about you? Did you miss your chance? Maybe He's blessing everybody but you. But that's a lie. God is not ignoring you. He's not punishing you. He's preparing you. There are things He's doing in the background that you can't see. He's setting the stage. He's aligning people, places, and situations. He's working on your character so you can carry the weight of what you're asking for. Because a blessing received too early can become a burden, and God loves you too much to give you something before you're ready to steward it. Think about David. He was anointed king as a teenager, but he didn't take the throne until years later. In between the promise and the fulfillment, there was rejection, betrayal, hiding in caves, and fighting battles he never asked for. But it was in that in-between space that God shaped him, strengthened him, trained him. David wasn't just waiting, he was becoming. And the same is true for you. Waiting time is not wasted time when you're in God's hands. Sometimes we get frustrated because we think the delay means denial. But a delay is not a denial, it's often a layer of divine protection. You think you're ready for the relationship, the platform, the opportunity, the breakthrough, but God sees the whole picture. He knows what's ahead. He knows what it's going to take to sustain what you're praying for. And He's not just interested in giving you a moment of breakthrough, He wants you to live in it, to walk in it with wisdom, integrity, and strength. When you rush ahead of God, you end up with Ishmael instead of Isaac. You birth something out of impatience, and then you have to manage something He never meant for you to carry. That's why waiting isn't passive, it's protective. It keeps you from settling. It keeps you from stepping into something that looks good but isn't God. Because the enemy can open doors too. Not every opportunity is from heaven. And timing is one of the ways you discern the difference. But while you're waiting, what are you doing with your heart? Are you waiting with bitterness? With comparison? With anxiety? Or are you waiting with faith, with expectation, with trust? Waiting well is part of spiritual maturity. It's easy to praise when everything's falling into place. But can you praise while it's still falling apart? Can you trust when all you've got is a word and no visible evidence? That's where your roots go deep. That's where you learn to lean not on your own understanding. We think we're waiting on God, but often He's waiting on us, waiting on our attitude to shift, waiting on our obedience, waiting on our willingness to let go of control. Sometimes the breakthrough is already released, it's just on the other side of your surrender. So don't confuse silence with absence. Don't confuse a pause with abandonment. He's still working. He's still writing your story. And when the time is right, His time, you won't have to force it. It'll flow. It'll align. It'll feel like peace, not pressure. God's timing doesn't just deliver the blessing, it preserves it. What he gives, he sustains. What he starts, he finishes. He knows how to get you from where you are to where you're called to be, and he knows how to do it well, without shortcuts, without compromise, without you having to manipulate the outcome. You don't have to manufacture your own miracle. You don't have to chase what God already has scheduled. You just have to stay positioned, stay faithful, stay ready. Life is full of unknowns. We walk through seasons where we don't know what's coming next. We don't know why certain things happen. We don't know how things will work out. And let's be honest, it's scary. The unknown brings uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds fear. When we don't have control over a situation, we often feel like we're floating with nothing to hold on to, no guarantees, no answers. But here's the truth. God is not the author of confusion. He's the author of peace. And just because you don't know what's ahead doesn't mean that God doesn't. In fact, the unknown is often where God's greatest work is done in our lives. It's in those seasons of uncertainty that he calls us to trust him in ways we never have before. It's when the path isn't clear that he asks us to take the first step. We often ask, why God? How God? When God? But God doesn't always answer those questions because he's not asking us to figure everything out. He's asking us to trust him. He's asking us to lean into his sovereignty, his faithfulness, and his goodness. He's not asking us to have all the answers. He's asking us to have faith that he holds the answers. Take a moment to think about the times in your life when you've been in the most uncertain places, the seasons when everything felt out of your control, when you had no idea how things would turn out. And now, look back. How many of those times did God show up? How many times did he provide, protect, and guide you when you thought there was no way out? Sometimes it's in the uncertainty that we see God's hand the most clearly because we have no other choice but to rely on him. We want to know what's ahead, and we want to control the process. But God has a different plan. He's not interested in our comfort zone. He's interested in our faith zone. God isn't just about getting us to the destination. He's about teaching us to trust him every step of the way. And trust isn't built on certainty. It's built on obedience in the unknown. Think about the story of Abraham. God called him to leave everything he knew to go to a land that he had never seen before. God didn't give him a roadmap. He didn't give him a timeline. He simply said, go. And Abraham trusted God with the unknown. He took that first step, even though he had no idea what was waiting for him. He had no idea how long the journey would be, what challenges he would face, or when he would arrive at his destination. But he trusted the one who called him. And what about the Israelites? God called them to leave Egypt, but he didn't give them the easy route. He led them into the wilderness, a place that was desolate and filled with uncertainty. They didn't know how they were going to survive. They didn't know where their next meal was coming from. They didn't know where they were going. But God provided manna every single day. He didn't give them tomorrow's provision today. He gave them what they needed for today. And that's a lesson for us. We want God to show us everything at once. But he often gives us just enough for the next step. And that's all we need. Trusting God with the unknown doesn't mean we have to have it all figured out. It means we trust in his ability to lead us, even when we can't see the way. It means we trust that his heart is for us, that his plans are for our good, and that he will not leave us in the dark. Trusting God in the unknown is not about feeling certain. It's about choosing to believe that God's wisdom and timing are greater than our own. It's about knowing that he has the bigger picture in mind, even when we can't see it. When we're in the unknown, it's easy to start looking around and comparing ourselves to others. We wonder why their lives seem to be more together, why they seem to have it figured out while we're still in the dark. But comparison never leads to peace. It only robs us of the joy that comes from trusting God in the place we're at right now. God has a unique plan for each of us, and it's some of the same as someone else's. His timing is perfect for you. Your journey is different, but he's with you every step of the way. There's a beautiful peace that comes when we let go of the need to know everything and simply trust God. That peace isn't found in having answers. It's found in knowing that the one who holds the future also holds us. And that is more than enough. God is in the unknown. He's in the waiting. He's in the uncertain. And he's not going anywhere. So in those moments when fear creeps in and uncertainty tries to paralyze you, remember this: you don't have to know the future, God does. And he's promised to never leave you, never forsake you, and to be your constant guide through every unknown. Trust him with the journey. Trust him with the process. He is faithful, even when the path is unclear.